the dirt on site, sediment control. The topics that we will cover include what is sediment control and what are the tools in the toolbox for sediment control practices. Sediment control is dealing with soil once it has eroded. You are trying to trap sediment and keep it on site. Runoff is temporarily impounded behind the practice to allow soil particles to settle out, and water will infiltrate through the soil.
There are design guidelines in SUDAS for the sediment controls that can be used. There are also specifications in these specifications manual. So the practices that we'll take a look at are silt fence, wattles and filter socks, wood/berms, stabilized exits, and storm drain inlet protection.
The correct way to install silt fence, wattles, and filter socks is shown on the left. They should be staked in place and placed on the contour with ends upturned so that water will not cut around them. Instead of one long run of silt fence that will get blown out or overwhelmed at a weak point, it is recommended that they be broken up into smaller lengths with ends upturned like smile faces. The steeper the slope, the closer the silt fence, wattles, or socks should be spaced. Larger diameter wattles and filter socks should be used on steeper slopes. The incorrect method is shown on the right, with long runs of silt fence that are not placed on the contour and they don't have upturned ends. Silt fence is installed by a slicing unit. The edge is buried or trenched into the soil. T-section posts are used that are at least 4 feet long. On flat areas, space the posts 8 feet apart, and on slopes, place them closer together, 3 to 4 feet apart. Fasten with wire or plastic zip ties. Wattles and filter socks are placed on the soil surface. Stake them in place directly into the sock or use the triangle method as shown. The steeper the slope, the larger the sock, and the closer the stake should be placed. Move these practices out of the way if access is needed. Don't allow them to be run over. Replace if they happen to be driven over or if they are torn. Tree/berms can be an inexpensive option, especially if you're taking trees down on site. Make them from chopped and shredded wood mulch. Don't use even-sized mulch. The berm should be high enough to impound water, usually a skid loader bucketful in height. All storm drain inlets and streets near the project need to be protected, as well as beehive inlets. Storm drains can be protected with external practices or drop-in inserts. External filter protection is typically used for beehives. Stabilize all construction site entrances or exits. Most communities require this before the foundation is dug. 1 to 3 inch diameter rock is used with fabric underneath. The fabric will prevent the rock from pushing into the soil. Reusable pads can also be used. Park only on these areas or on the street. Don't park vehicles or equipment on exposed soils. This compacts the soils and can cause track out on the streets. Prevent vehicle tracking by cleaning up streets at the end of the day and before any anticipated rain. Use a broom, shovel, skid loader, and/or street sweeper. Don't track sediment onto streets. Make sure that your stabilized exits or entrances are maintained. Do use a practice to prevent sediment-laden or turbid or cloudy water from entering a local water body. Don't discharge dirty water directly into a storm sewer intake, ditch, lake or stream, or wetland. Only clean water can enter the storm sewer. A simple test to follow. Collect a bottle of water to be discharged. If you can't see your fingers through the back side of the bottle, the water is too turbid and needs to be filtered. Practices that can be used include filtering through vegetation, filter bags, or a gravel pail system. Shown is an example of a dewatering bag system. Make sure the soil surrounding the bag is protected. These become very heavy when filled with sediment. When dewatering, you could discharge across a vegetated surface. Shown in the photo are wattles used at the discharge point to prevent scour. Another dewatering method uses a slotted pail that contains a submersible pump and is filled with gravel and placed in a depression or excavation. The hose attached to the pump discharges at the surface across a board or tarp placed on top of vegetation. The board or tarp converts concentrated flow to sheet flow that is less erosive.
A reminder to button up construction sites for the winter. So plan ahead and install practices before the soil freeze. However, if you have to deal with situations on frozen soils, you could use sandbags, you could use riprap for check dams, you could use Super Duty silt fence that can be used with a geotextile wrap. So you have options.
Next, keep it clean. Use good housekeeping practices to keep it clean.